Okay, hi everybody. I think it's time to go over some of the 5NL hands that I've experienced. Uh, as you can see, the shot tick at 5NL has been far more successful than the last one. We did have a break-even stretch for 1,000 hands, or rather should I say we were down a buy-in. However, from this point onwards, up to the 2,600th hand that I played, we just crushed it. In large part due to this one massive pot that I will be going over. But overall, even the rest of it, like we won a nice one here, and we managed to maintain it, and then we managed to just gradually go up and up and up, and yeah, because of this whole 2,600 hands, I managed to maintain a win rate of 40 big blinds per 100, which over 2,600 hands, that is insane. I acknowledge that this massive pot has a huge part to play in that win rate. However, it's just insane. Like, variance can go your way a lot. Sorry, can go your way sometimes. And this case, I've been blessed almost in order to run like this hot. So I've got 4 hands that will showcase how I play so far at 5NL Zoom. Oh, one thing I should notice, I am playing 4 tables or 3 tables of Zoom at any one point. So I'm 4 tabling Zoom with a win rate of 40 big blinds per 100. It's pretty solid, right? I'm really liking the Zoom 4 tabling or 3 tabling at any one point because I just get to play a lot of hands. And with a lot of hands comes more practice, more experience, and more spots that I certainly didn't see, but I'm now seeing. All the hands I'm going to go through are value oriented. However, I think I'll make a separate video showcasing one specific hand where I took advantage of an opponent's weak capped range and then overbet in order to take advantage of that. But yeah, that's for another video. This video I'll just be going over like how this graph happened, how this managed to happen. We've won almost 11 buy-ins, so we're actually just over halfway to 10NL, which is crazy. The amount of progress we've made so far due to us sun running is just so insanely quick. So let's go over a hand. Face and open, we 3-bet 6-5 suited. It's worth noting that we are 200 big blinds deep. So I could have made this bigger, but otherwise it's fine. And we get a call. Flop a boat, which is nice. I deviate from our normal free betting plan somewhat, just because I block so much of villain's potential calling continuing range. So instead of betting 1/3 of my entire range, I decided to deviate a little bit and just bet a quarter. I think this has a somewhat human element to it, which is kind of funny, because I never really think about it that way in a lot of spots. However, this is certainly a unique spot. If I bet a quarter pot and we're deep, there is a small chance that villain will just spaz out versus a quarter pot bet. He'll just see it as weakness and he'll just pounce on it. It won't happen all the time, but it will happen sometimes, like he does here, which is fantastic. Like, this raise is almost certainly just spaz, because we block all the value. Like, he doesn't have 5s very often here, he doesn't have 6x very often here, he just has like, he'll have a lot of the combo draws, granted, but he'll also just have a lot of spaz, just like all of the spaz, like overcards with no equity will just do this sometimes. So yep, if I want to encourage him to spew off to me, then 3-betting doesn't make any sense. We obviously just call, try and look as weak as possible, and allow him to barrel into us. So we call. The turn is the 5, which is kind of bad because if he did have 6x, we now just chop instead of outright win. However, he continues to tell his story. He bets 190. We call. The river is the king of spades. We've got about pot left, and our opponent decides to bet 2/3 again. At this point, we're obviously going to try and get all the value from something. Like, if he has like a flush or just like an overplayed overpair, we want to try and get it all. There's really not much else to think about other than just jamming, and obviously he folds. So we scoop a nice stack our way. Open nines under the gun. The small blind calls, which is bad. We're also just under 200 big blinds deep here in this hand. And we are heads up to the flop. We get donked into for half pot. This is something that I've come to realise about these stakes. When an opponent donks into you, it's always a weak range, right? It's never strong. This is not Queen 10. This is not jacks. It's not eights. It's not Jack 9. It's always going to be something like Jack 10, Queen Jack, 10 9, 10 8, King Jack, Ace Jack. You know, some kind of like decent showdown value hand, but it's never going to withstand more pressure. Because a lot of his hands will have a 10 in it, and it's got a pair, we can just easily go for some value here when we raise to 60 cents, because all of his donking range will continue versus this. Like if he has 10 9, he's continuing. If he has 10 8, he's continuing. If he has King Jack, he's continuing. So we raise and he calls. Turn is a queen and he checks. This is a pretty important check. We've already seen that he has the ability to donk. So he doesn't donk this turn. It's more likely that he just has a 2 pair now, or just a pair. It's less likely he has a 10 just because he didn't donk, in my opinion. Obviously we can never know what our opponent's strategy, but this is something important to note, because if he has a 10 and we bet, obviously we lose, but we want to try and bet a size where his Jack X will continue, or his 2 pair will continue. You know, if he has Queen Jack, we want to try and get him to continue. If he has Queen 9, we want to get him to continue. So we can't bet too large. In fact, I think betting a quarter pot here is pretty good, because we'll guarantee that his entire range that we win against will continue. So he calls, and at this point I'm definitely convinced that he doesn't have a 10x. He didn't raise, so he probably doesn't have 10x. In any case, the river is the queen pairing the board, so we're now ahead of literally everything apart from Queen Jack. But then again, I don't really think he has Queen Jack because he didn't donk the river. All of his actions lead me to believe that he just has like some kind of 10, maybe, that didn't fast play. It is possible, even though I did discount it, it is possible. So he could have 10-9, he could have Jack 10. If I bet, his Jack X is probably going to fold at this point, so there's no point thinking about getting value from Jack X. If he has King Queen, which is a hand that he could have, you know, he donked it, a weak kind of gut shot plus 2 overs that called the flop and then turned top pair. If he has that hand, we would want to try and get max value from that. And we've already seen that this player is fairly weak. We just want to try and capture all the EV from all of the hands that we beat, like the 10x, like the trips, and if he does have Queen Jack, it's just unfortunate. Versus that entire range, I really thought in real time that if he had 10x here, that he would call an all-in. So I went for it. So I just jammed. And we got snapped. Snapped in real time by Jack 10, which is very, very satisfying. Just getting all the money in by the river, just with a huge overbet. Like it's a 3.5x overbet. It's ridiculous. But we managed to get there. Nice. Okay, this hand. It's almost the exact same premise. We open 2s from the small blind 4x and we get called. Queen 8 deuce, we flop bottom set. See bet our entire range 1/3 pot. Pretty good. Get called. Turn is a jack. So when he calls the flop, he's going to have a lot of Queen X, 8x, deuce X, heart draws, gut shots, you know, just a lot of his range that on this jack will continue versus a large bet. If he has a Queen X, he's going to call. If he has an 8x, a lot of it approved to a gut shot, so they'll call. If he had 10-9, he's obviously got a straight. Jack 9, Jack 10 improved to middle pair plus a gut shot. And some of his flush draws also improved to a Jack X plus flush draw. So this turn is pretty good for his range. Because it's good for his range and we've got bottom set, we should just size up. So I do. I bet. I think I should make this larger though. I bet 2/3, but really this should be like $1. Like, we want to try and get the max. We get a call, and the river is a queen. This is almost the exact same spot compared to last hand, because our opponent will have missed flush draws which won't call any size bet. And also it's worth noting that a lot of people with missed flush draws here, if we bet, won't turn their hand into a bluff, like almost at all. It's just not happening. So we have missed flush draws that will fold, middle pair which will fold, Jack X which might call a small bet, might not, and Queen X, which I believe will call an all-in. If we bet 8-19 here, I think if he has ace-queen, he's just going to call, because if he's trying to think about it, we have missed flush draws. We missed hearts and missed clubs, so if we bluffed for 8-19, he probably thinks that we're bluffing. Sorry, if we bet 8-19, he probably thinks that we're just bluffing. This is obviously very exploitative, going for these massive value bets like this. But sometimes it'll work. You'll run into a hand that is sticky, like ace-queen. Even though he blocks all the missed flush draws, it's just pretty insane that I'm allowed to extract value this way. These really large value bets, by the way, are a huge part of why I'm hitting that 40 big blinds per 100. It's one thing to run good and to flop boats and sets all the time. It's another thing to try and recognize the situation that you're in and recognize that I can just go for maximum value on the river. A lot of people won't go for this bet on the river. They'll bet like $1. But if you recognize that the opponent is likely to be weak, strategically wise, and that he's likely to have top trips, he's just going to call the all-in, so just go for it, you know? There's no need to just think about it like, what am I balancing my range with? It doesn't really matter, just go for it. Okay, last hand. Now this is an insane hand. Right, this only happens 1 in a million times, I'm pretty sure. Like, this won't happen very often at all. We see an open. We 3-bet pot with aces. We get cold 4-bet jammed on. This is going to be like jacks plus ace-king, probably. Maybe not even jacks plus, maybe just queens plus ace-king. And then this guy with 300 big blinds, which we cover, cold 5-bet jams. Now this range is probably kings plus, right? If he had queens or ace-king, would he really just jam here? I mean, he might. There are certainly some people that would. But this range is likely to be kings plus. This guy folds, and we're obviously fist pump getting it in. We call, and the pot is $40. It's 8 buy-ins. We're against kings and a king-queen suited. This is a spaz. This is not a spaz, but obviously we have aces. And let me be clear, this has nothing to do with skill or how well you can hand read or how well you can construct your ranges post-flop. Any decent regular who decides they're having a 3-bet strategy on the button versus the cutoff will have the same spot as I do. So all regs will have this spot, and all regs will have won a $40 pot here. This doesn't mean that I'm special, it just means that I got lucky into running into this spot whilst I'm shot taking. I collected it all, and I now have a stack of 43.84. Oh, and I also paid $1 in rake. You know, just paying 20 big blinds in rake, you know, as you do. Anyway, those were all of the potential spots, all of the spots that I think we should go through. They all had a common theme, trying to extract max value from the range that your opponent is representing. In the first hand, he was representing spaz pretty much, so we want to try and take a line that gets most value from spaz. Here, we took a line that gets most value from weak hands, like a straight on a paired board. Here, same thing. And then here, There's nothing else. We just got lucky. That's it. Hopefully we can continue this run good so that we can hit that $100 profit and move up to 10 an L as soon as possible. Alright, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.